Today is Lucille Ball's 108th birthday. Hey, I'm Amy and welcome back. To celebrate Lucille Ball's 108th birthday today, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite things about this iconic woman, this pioneer in film and television, probably my favorite person of all time. I want to talk about her physical comedy and just her comedy style in general. I feel like that is what most people know her for, but I just want to talk about it and break down some of her iconic scenes, all of which are from I Love Lucy because that is what most people know her for, and it is probably the widest selection I could look at because there are 6 seasons and 181 episodes to choose from. I only picked a handful of episodes that display some of the things that I'm going to talk about with Lucille's comedy stylings. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about Lucille's pioneering history, my history with Lucy, and some other things that make her so great. To start off, my history with Lucille Ball has been spanning the last 25 years, I want to say. I have been watching I Love Lucy since I was like 3 to 5 years old. Anytime I was at my grandparents' house, we would have TV Land or Nick at Night on, and one of the shows that was constantly playing was I Love Lucy, along with The Dick Van Dyke Show.
The Dick Van Dyke Show, starring Dick Van Dyke
And Andy Griffith.
The Andy Griffith Show.
That is just what started me on my absolute love for comedy and TV shows and movies even from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And even though I don't think I am very funny, Lucy has been inspiring me in just every single way. And one of those big ways is how much of a pioneer she was in film and TV. She was the first female to ever head up a production studio. While they were still married, she co-ran Desilu Productions with her husband Desi Arnaz, and after they got divorced, she was still running the studio. And one of the shows that she started was Star Trek.
Space, the final frontier.
And along with this iconic first from Lucille Ball, I Love Lucy had many other firsts as well. They were the TV show that moved the majority of TV production from New York City to Los Angeles.
That's why I can hardly wait. Open up that golden cake, California, here I come.
It was the first television show to record on film instead of the very expensive kinescope, as well as utilizing a 3-camera setup instead of the very popular single camera.
Performed like a play in front of a live audience with 3 cameras rolling, it was a format so successful it is still in use today.
It was one of the first primetime sitcoms to feature a multi-ethnic marriage, as well as being the first television show to showcase a pregnant star.
We're having a baby, my baby and me.
So now let's get down to the real meat of this episode, the comedy stylings of Lucille Ball. And to really start that off, I wanted to talk a little bit about a book written by Madeline Pugh Davis, who was one of the writers for I Love Lucy, as well as other shows that Lucille Ball was on, including the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, The Lucy Show,
The Lucy Show.
and Here's Lucy.
Here's Lucy. Starring Lucille Ball.
In her book, Laughing with Lucy, as well as in an interview in the Finding Lucy PBS documentary on Lucille Ball, Madeline Pugh Davis talks about how Lucy really got into character. Whenever there was a bit or a prop that needed to happen within a scene, Lucille would practice and practice and practice with that prop. So when she did it on screen, the timing was perfect and everything flowed seamlessly and naturally.
Lucy didn't like to see the script till the first reading. She wanted to see it fresh. We wrote everything out in the script, bit by bit, business by business. But this is not to say that she didn't add incredibly.
In that same Finding Lucy documentary, Carol Burnett talks about how you could give any scene that Lucille does to any other person and it wouldn't be done as well.
You give that script to somebody else, it ain't gonna be that funny. It's the way she did it. It's the way she looked. It's the way she reacted. You can't write that. You can delegate it. You can say, okay, wouldn't this be funny if? But the if is a big thing. The if was if we had Lucille Ball.
Because there is just this thing within Lucy's brain that makes her take whatever is written for her and turn it up to an 11. The first bit of comedy styling that I want to touch on is very brief, but it is something that defines Lucy as a character. And as I was going through episodes, I didn't find as much of this as I did other things I wanted to talk about, but I did want to touch on it because when you think of Lucille Ball, you think of the faces that she makes. It's how she works her lips and her eyes get really big and they're so full of expression that just make her very recognizable. Not only her red hair, but her red lip. And I can't even do the expression that she does because it's so iconic and so Lucille Ball. Next, I want to touch on some of the costumes and voices that she does. One episode in particular is either Hollywood at Last or LA at Last. It is an episode in the middle of season 4 where the Mertzes and Ricardos finally arrive in Los Angeles, California after traveling all the way from New York City so Ricky can star in a film. In this episode, Lucy meets Bill Holden at the Brown Derby and gets into some trouble with him. Then later on, Ricky ends up bringing William Holden to their apartment. When she realizes that it's him, she puts on a clay nose and some things happen. One thing in particular is that the nose starts itching her and she rubs it back and forth, moving the clay and really surprising Ricky and William Holden. And then she ends up lighting it on fire and then dunking it in her coffee to put it out.
Well, I guess I might as well tell you. I went to the Brown Derby today.
That's it. That's where I saw it. The Brown Derby. She was sitting in the next booth, and I asked the head waiter who the beautiful redhead was.
You did?
Yes, I wanted to find out your name and come over and tell you that you should be in movies, but you left before I had a chance.
And in another episode later that season, one of Lucy's friends from New York City stops by and wants to meet some of the celebrities that Lucy has been talking about meeting. And because Lucy has been telling some tall tales about meeting these celebrities, she has to dress up as these different celebrities, wearing different masks and putting on different voices.
Hiya, folks. Jimmy Durante, in person.
While hiding her friend's glasses so she can't see what is happening. Next is how she utilizes props. One of my favorite examples of this is in what is considered to be the pilot episode, but has been dubbed the Lost pilot episode because it was really used more as a way to get the studio to greenlight the show and was then reutilized in another episode in the first season. In this episode, Ricky is auditioning for a television show at his club, and one of the acts is a clown, and he gets injured during rehearsal and goes to Lucy's apartment, and when Lucy finds him there, she gets the idea to take over. So she dresses up as the clown and does his act in Ricky's show. And during this scene in the club, Lucy does some really great work with the standing cello and some horns. When working with the cello, she pulls a stool out of the back of it, and then when she's trying to play it, the stand in the bottom of the cello does not want to stay out. Every time she sets the cello up, the stand falls back into the cello. She finally gets annoyed with it enough to pull a plunger also out of the back of the cello and stick it in the bottom so that the cello will stay standing. When she tries to play the cello, she pulls the bow all the way back, and then when she lets it go, it whizzes past and hits Ricky. Finally, to round it all out, Ricky brings out a row of horns and Lucy pretends to be a seal to play them. And finally, the most iconic of Lucy's bits is her physical comedy. And her physical comedy also plays into a lot of her prop work and facial expressions and costumes and voices as well. But this one I want to talk about solely on its own because there are so many moments that I really wanted to touch on. I can go back and include the things that happened in the Lost pilot episode that was also reutilized in season 1, and the way she portrays some of the actors that she's impersonating when her friend comes to visit, and also when she puts on the clay nose when she meets William Holden at her apartment. But I did pick out some specific scenes that really focused a lot more on her physical comedy than anything else that I have talked about so far. From an episode towards the end of season 1, Lucy does a commercial where Ricky is hosting a television variety hour. Lucy wants to be the girl in the commercial during the hour. When she goes to do this commercial, she doesn't realize that the product that she has to showcase and actually ingest has 23% alcohol.
It's got everything in it. Meat, vegetables, minerals, vitamins.
Wonder where she is.
Alcohol, 23%. alcohol, 23%.
So she keeps drinking it and slowly gets very, very drunk. And she shows how drunk she's getting by the way that she is talking and the way that she is handling herself. She gets very loose and relaxed. Her hands kind of flop about. She spills the bottle. She starts mixing words together and slurring words that create this wonderful mashup.
Well, I'm your mind drinking girl. Are you tired of run down and listless? Do you pop out at parties? Are you unpopular? Well, are you?
Another iconic episode is the first episode of season 2 called Job Switching, where the women and the men switch places. Fred and Ricky become housekeepers and Lucy and Ethel go find jobs. Lucy and Ethel end up working in a candy factory, and there are some beautiful moments in there where Lucy is trying to dip some cream filling in chocolate and completely messes it up and ends up fighting with a woman who is a professional chocolate maker. In real life, this woman was actually a professional chocolate maker, as well as the iconic conveyor belt scene that has been duplicated in pop culture so many times over.
Here she comes.
Also in the episode Hollywood at Last, when she first sees William Holden at the Brown Derby, she starts staring at him and he stares back at her, and when Lucy realizes this, she becomes very uncomfortable, spills her water everywhere, butters her hand instead of her bread, and cannot seem to figure out how to eat spaghetti correctly. And probably my favorite scene in all of I Love Lucy history, and actually probably my favorite episode, is the same episode where Lucy impersonates a bunch of different celebrities. At the end of this episode, she also dresses up as Harpo Marx, who coincidentally Ricky had met at the pool earlier that day and sent up to their apartment to meet Lucy's friend, unbeknownst to Lucy. Hijinks ensue, and there is a great sequence where they pay homage to an iconic scene between the Marx brothers from Duck Soup. And the final iconic physical comedy scene I want to talk about is the grape smashing scene from season 5, Lucy's Italian Movie. In this episode, Lucy gets asked by an Italian film producer if she would like a small role in his next film. Hearing the title of the film, Bitter Grapes, she assumes that it is about a vineyard and goes to learn how to stomp grapes. Once she gets to the vineyard, she realizes that all of the women are walking around barefoot, so she takes her shoes off, and the comedy of her trying to walk on the hot stone in her bare feet is excellent and pure Lucy comedy. Lucy then gets roped into stomping the grapes, and once she gets in the barrel, she tries to figure out how to do it, but doesn't really do it correctly, so she just does it wrong and stomps around and has fun with it. And because she's putting so much effort into it and not really doing what she should be doing, she gets tired very easily, which in turn makes the lady that she is doing the grape stomping with very upset, and they get into a fight. In an interview on the Finding Lucy documentary, Lucille talks about what exactly went down during this fight scene. Watching her tell this story is very much like watching an episode of I Love Lucy, because in real life it seems that Lucille Ball was just as expressive and into using physical comedy to tell her stories as well.
So I made a dance out of it like this, and finally I slipped. And in slipping, I hit her, and she took offense. Now, she had been told that we were to stay down for a while, give me a chance to get my legs way up, so that they'd show in the camera. Then up would come an arm, and then my head was supposed to pop. Well, my head never popped up. She kept me down by the throat. And I had grapes up my nose, in my ears, and she was choking me, and I'm really beating her. And somebody had to come in and say, look, let her up eventually. We have to get on with the scene. She said, oh, yeah, and down we went again. Ow.
But those are just some of the most iconic moments that I felt really showcased Lucille Ball's comedy stylings, within I Love Lucy at least. There are so many other shows and films that she was in that we could talk about, but let me know in the comments down below some of your favorite iconic Lucille Ball or I Love Lucy moments. And if you don't have one, I definitely recommend checking out I Love Lucy, because it is one of my favorite shows of all time. I did a long time ago a top 5 favorite TV shows. You can check it out up there. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really truly do appreciate you, whoever you are. Let me know who you are in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, because I talk about things, movies, TV shows, filmmaking, film history, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye!